Good morning, Auburn fans. You have just won your first SEC game of 2025. Hugh Freeze is still your coach, but is Jackson Arnold still your quarterback? All that and more on The Scoop with Dukes. Welcome to The Scoop with Dukes. I'm your host, Philip Dukes, a.k.a. DukesTheScoop. Check me out on Twitter and Instagram at DukesTheScoop. And please be sure to hit the like and subscribe button. If you have not already become a member, please go to the description. There's a link at the bottom where you can become a member of the channel. All support is appreciated. All right, guys. The $1 million in question last week in Auburn was, does Hugh Freeze make it through the season? I think the more immediate $1 million question this week is, who's your starting quarterback? Ashton Daniels comes in relief of Jackson Arnold after pick six on an RPO. That we'll talk about that as well. But you go in and you win the game. He takes a deep shot to Eric Singleton, where you got to go to my man Matty Dubs. Matty Dubs, college football. Matty Dubs, he does a really good breakdown, and he broke down the game and what Ashton Daniels did really well. So if you haven't already, go check out Matty Dubs. Put that in and put Matty Dubs Auburn or Matty Dubs Ashton Daniels in your search bar, and you'll see it. MATTYDUBS. But so I'm watching the Matty Dubs video, and he's saying how Ashton Daniels has the ability to stretch the field to not only Cam Coleman, but to multiple receivers. So what I do is I go check out Ashton Daniels at Stanford. Repeatedly, when he left the pocket, he was not just looking to run. When Ashton Daniels was leaving the pocket at Stanford, he was looking to stretch the field. One of his top receivers was Elic Ayamanor. I think you guys remember him from a couple years ago. He had that huge game against Colorado. He's currently with the Tennessee Titans. But you saw that if he felt that his wide receiver had a step or one-on-one coverage, he was letting the ball go. And I think we all see that he can be an effective runner. He's built more powerfully than Jackson Arnold. He goes around 6'2". I would say he's about 220 by now. But I think the way that he always has his eyes downfield, he wants to make a big play. When I talk to some of the guys on the defense and some of the guys in the building about his performance in the fall, it was always he gives you options, right? There's a lot that you can do with him. That's what it was. It was like he gives you options. Some people felt like the difference between he and Jackson wasn't enough for you to start Ashton over him, but they would have felt comfortable. And I think you saw that on Saturday. He provided a jolt. It helped the defense as well. The defense is already balling, but they took it to another level. And could this be the jolt of energy that Auburn needed? I thought that jolt of energy would have come from Deuce Knight. But Ashton Daniels, now, we could talk about who Ashton Daniels is. First of all, he has pedigree. Now, this is for my Jefferson pilot, my JP crew. You've been watching SEC, ACC football for longer than 10 years. We're talking about the guys who were watching in the 90s. His dad is Juan Daniels from Georgia. I know, and if you have been watching Auburn football, you know what a thorn in SEC football, what a thorn in the side Juan Daniels was as a player. At UGA, he was just a guy who was always kind of Johnny on the spot when you needed a big play, and it wasn't one of the other major guys at the time. And actually, Ashton's father, Juan, was on that team in 1996 that Auburn was up 28-7 against Georgia before the Bama game, and they end up losing that game. A lot of times when it wasn't Corey Allen and it wasn't Hines Ward, it was Juan Daniels, and he knew how to find the end zone. He had, I think in his career he had 16 touchdowns. I think he had like 5, 5, and 6. So he comes from good pedigree and a clutch gene. Like we talk about the clutch gene, he actually has it. His dad was a very clutch receiver at the University of Georgia, had a really good career. Well, let's talk about the clutch gene with Ashton Daniels. So we know Georgia high school football at the highest classification is as is about the closest thing. We call it a baby SEC, right? So we're talking about one of the highest levels of high school football that you could play in the entire country. Well, Ashton Daniels won 3 state championships at Buford. And while winning those state championships, he made the game-winning throw 3 years in a row. Warner Robins, game-winning throw. Lee County, game-winning throw. Langston Hughes, game-winning throw. 3 state championships, 3 chips. And in all 3, he made the game-winning throw. I'm not sure if there are other guys. I don't know if anybody has broken that record. And to have 3 state championships as a quarterback with a game-winning throw as well. I don't know if anybody else has done that in Georgia high school history at the highest classification. He's not scared of anything. And I think the calm that you saw and the calm that Coach Freeze saw and the calm that the defense saw, I think it really has a larger effect than the stat sheet would show. He's a steadying presence. So now, of course, you were going up against the worst defense in the SEC. Let's see what happens when you up the competition. And I think that's a valid point. I think it is. But I think it's a point that he gets to, that I think that he deserves to get to prove that point. So Jackson Arnold, I don't think play calling has done him any favors, to be honest, even with the RPO. Now, man, shout out to my man Daryl Dapp over there with Locked On Auburn. But he made a good point. On the RPO, and you're running the ball so well, why was the pass an option? I get it. Why wasn't that an RRO? And you've heard me say that before. Sometimes you got to take the P out. Just make it a mesh point read, like, zone read, but not RPO. But to the credit of the offensive staff and Coach Freeze, when you spend that type of money on a quarterback, you spend it so you can run RPO. So I think Ashton Daniels is somebody who, do you trust him more in the RPO setting? That's the foundation of this offense. If you can't run RPO, it does not work. I've talked to some guys in college football who feel like Coach Freeze could update the offense a little more. Well, that I think it's about the trigger man. Yes, is the scheme cutting edge? Is he my man at North Texas, who I love his offense? Absolutely not. That's not him. Can you win if you have the players? For sure. You got to have a trigger man. So, is your trigger man Ashton Daniels? I would say, I think this week you've got to start him. And we know my opinion doesn't mean anything at Auburn, right? When it comes, because these guys get paid millions of dollars and they've been watching these quarterbacks for weeks and weeks and weeks in a way that we could never see them. But it seems like when I talk to players, they're excited. When I talk to certain people, they're excited. They feel like he gives us a chance to win. And you know what? I don't think it's a slight to Jackson. I just think it's a confidence thing. I think if Jackson were to play with the same confidence that we saw against Baylor, yeah, I think he gives you an awesome chance to win. But I think his confidence is taking a hit a little bit. I think when you're playing tight because you know there's a guy breathing down your neck, it shows on the field. The pick six could have lost you the game. And I think when you turn the ball over, that's when you do say, hey, come have a seat with me. And he's been given plenty of opportunities. Deuce Knight. Is Deuce Knight your two? If Ashton Daniels is your one, is Deuce Knight your two? Remains to be seen. I think that before you would go back to Jackson Arnold, I think you would need to give Duke's Knight a shot. Let's say Ashton Daniels is your starter. Jackson Arnold is your backup. You got to find a way to get Deuce Knight some reps. I think is that we're beyond that because now you're coaching for your job. If you coach Hugh Freeze, you got to know that if you still haven't gotten that vote of confidence, you're not out of the woods. And I think he knows that. And I think nothing builds more goodwill than the future. Ashton Daniels is a senior. Now, if he only plays in, I think he's only played in. Is that his? Maybe he's played in one game this year, 2 at the most. I think he's got another game or 2, and he can still redshirt. That may be on the table. You may be able to work this thing out where you may be able to work it out where Ashton Daniels and Deuce Knight both redshirt, and you can still have an opportunity to win 8 games. I think that could be something viable. I think you got to play some chess here to figure out how to keep your pieces together. The defense, you have to give them something to fight for and fight with. This defense is a championship level defense. I think we've seen it now. Your MVP right now is Xavier Debo Atkins. Shout out to Debo. Keldrick Faulk, I think he's solidifying himself. When I talk to scouts, yes, he may not be blowing up the stat sheet, but when you talk about a guy who could play 3 to 5 technique in the NFL, and Keldrick Faulk is looking like a top 10 pick. And it may not be showing up in the stat sheet like we thought it would. But for somebody who can rush all the way from the 7 back to the 3 and be effective, he can play long arm, he can go speed to power, he can do everything. This is a special team. And it's only going to get better as Jared Smith develops, as Malik Autry develops, as Malik Blockton develops, as Jordan Crawford develops, as Caleb Falk develops. This is a special defense. We're forgetting Xavier Atkins is doing this as a redshirt freshman. Eric Melendez is a true freshman. Jay Crawford is a true sophomore. You could get Ken Lee back. This can be an absolute monster of a defense next year. If you can keep these guys together, we're talking about an Auburn defense that would rival. I would say go. I would take this defense next year and say, go find me one better in Auburn history. And at least we can have a debate. I'm not going to say I would win, but it has the potential to be up there with some of the best. When you look at everything you have, you were worried about the linebacker position. Now you've got a star at backer. You mess around and get that safety. Let's say Braylon Womack comes in and helps steady that safety position. Dog, it could be really scary moments next year in Jordan Hereford teams. But you have to give them some type of hope. So you got a winnable game this week. Do you start Ashton Daniels? Drop it in the comment who you think the starter should be. That's my time. I appreciate you guys.